Welcome on Texas football. Time for lunch with the coach. I've got Coach Bob Shipley with me. Brian Irwin, our normal joiner here on Texas football. Lunch with the coach is out in Lake Michigan on a boat tour today, so he's going to miss it. But he'll be watching the Longhorn game on Wednesday tomorrow. Coach Shipley. This episode brought to you by our friend Laura Baker over at Keller Williams Realty with the Andy Allen team. We'll talk a little bit more about her later. Coach, I got to start it off with you. You know, we're 24 hours away, essentially, from the Longhorns going to bat against a team that Longhorns are favored here by 2 touchdowns, roughly. What are your overall thoughts on a team that's a prohibitive favorite playing an Arizona State team that has been very, very good this year? Outkick their coverage, so to speak. Yeah. How do the Longhorns kind of go into this, and what does a coach like Kenny Dillingham maybe have up his sleeve as he looks as he's the underdog?
Well, first of all, it's obvious he's one of the up and coming coaches, in the country, in terms of really coming in and making an impact. And he's a great coach. Obviously, he's an offensive coach. I'll tell you what, Arizona State, just from watching them and researching them, they are a scrappy bunch. And obviously, they're very confident. Some of the things that have come out of their camp this week, it's a little bit of a kind of raise your eyebrows a little bit as a coach. And, I come from the Mac Brown school of coaching. In fact, Mac Brown would make the players, as you probably know, go through media training when they were freshmen. This is what you say, guys. This is what you don't say. You remember Mac would even take them to Ruth Chris or whatever and teach them etiquette, so that when you're out, he just tried to teach them how to handle yourself when you're out in public. He did a great job of that. I don't know that they're doing that at Arizona State. Or I tell you what, Rod Babers loves it. He said, I love guys that believe in themselves and I think they're the best. And, everybody, Rod said, every guy thinks they're the best and they want to show up whoever it is they're playing against. But I'm just old school enough not to, give your opponent anything else to be motivated about, as if I'm not going to be motivated already. But so it's crazy to have somebody start calling out a team like Texas, especially offensive players, talking about, Texas defense, probably arguably the greatest defense we've ever had in the history of our program, in my opinion, certainly one of the best. But the thing that's scary about that, scarier to me, is guys that can back it up. And,
yep.
Scadabo's a guy that has pretty much backed it up. I mean, he's had his times. He did have a great game against Texas State. He's had some games where he only had 60 or 70 yards rushing, but he's also had 230, 240-yard games. So obviously, but the interesting thing about those games, Bobby, is the games where he was held to a lower run total, they seem to have gone more to a zone scheme in those games. And he doesn't run the zone that well. He's a gap power type guy. And when you look at the games and the breakdown of gap schemes compared to zone schemes, he's much more effective in the gap schemes than he is the zone, which in my mind, it takes a more athletic offensive line to be really good at zone blocking like we do. Angle blocking is, gap blocking is a lot of times angle blocking, linemen pulling around, leading. You don't have to be as talented to do that, and they do it really, really well. So it's going to be a great matchup, and a lot of people are predicting a huge win for Texas, and I'm just I'm old school. I'm just like not so fast. This is a team that has beat a lot of people this year. They've gotten beat by some team that maybe they shouldn't have lost certain games, but they're certainly a team that sound like to me you're not going to be talking a bunch of smack unless you're ready to play and you feel very confident about your game plan.
I remember James Brown being a 3-touchdown underdog to Nebraska and talking smack and ended up backing it up. Let's see if Sam Leavitt can do that for Arizona State. I do want to mention and talk to you about that offensive run game. But I also want to say this. I'm like you, Coach. I could care less whether it's 2 touchdowns or 1 point or 20 points. I just want to see a Texas win. That's the ultimate.
Right.
That's the ultimate test. The other stuff is just all icing on the cake. I want the cake. I want to be able to chomp that off and have Texas be in the national semifinals by winning. How they do it, we'll be there to watch. I do want to ask you this. You mentioned the gap scheme versus the zone running scheme, and let's talk about now and take about it the Texas defense versus the Arizona State offense. Is Texas going to be able, if they run a gap scheme versus a zone scheme, does Texas have the personnel there to stop or limit Scatterboot, in your opinion?
I think so. I do think that Arizona State, I think they'll mix it up. They know that all of our eyes are going to be on the running back. So obviously we're going to see, them use him as a decoy. We're going to see quarterback runs off of the play action with Scatterbo, and then we're going to see obviously play action passes. I think the way, other than if their gap scheme isn't working, if their power isn't working, then the way they're going to have to move the ball against us is being able to use some type of misdirection, something scheme-wise to take advantage of Texas, because they can't just go up man-to-man against Texas, I don't think, and run the gap scheme right. I think Texas fits well with that. Like I said, the only problem is if we oversell on stopping Scatterbo, then that's going to leave some potential running room for the quarterback, which obviously he's a good dual-threat quarterback. Those are things, that concern me about it. I think that I think if our defense is playing the way that they should play and we're fitting gap wise, you have to sell out to stop the run. Obviously, y'all have talked about that all week on Coffee Football. You got to take away what they do best, but don't think that they're going to be done to say, okay, we're just going to run Scatterbo on the power and win the game. No, they're not thinking that. They're going to try that, use it. But I think they'll probably use them as a decoy more early to try to get Texas defense on their heels and go, wait a minute, we thought they were going to hand it to this guy 35 times today, and they're doing everything but hand the ball to him, So I think they're a great staff. I think they'll have a good scheme against us. I just don't know that they can overcome the athleticism we have on the defensive side of the ball.
See, I agree with you. I think they're going to try to throw wide receiver screens, get the ball out to the tight end quick, try to do everything to take your eyes off of the real situation at running back, and then maybe get into the second and third quarter and start leaning on that guy a lot.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And it's something that is very similar to what, frankly, Steve Sarkisian likes to do. He likes to throw to set up the run. And Kenny Dillingham and he, I think, have a lot of similarities, actually, from how they call a game. So we'll see that tomorrow, I think. The Arizona State offense, you mentioned trying to scheme, whether it's misdirection, screen game, whatever. They're going to try to scheme open some first downs and then try to lay the hammer. That's my guess. Now, can they do that effectively? Let's see how much Texas has to cover going east and west too, right? I mean, that's one of the things that we have to watch. So we'll see how that goes. All right, I want to say thank you real quick, and then I'm going to ask you about the Texas offense, Coach, versus the Arizona State defense. Thank you to Laura Baker, realtor over at Keller Williams Realty with the Andy Allen team. Laura is your expert on real estate in and around the Austin area, whether it's Georgetown, Round Rock, anywhere in Central Texas. Laura Baker, Laura at AndyAllenTeam.com. That's Laura at AndyAllenTeam.com, 512-784-0505. That's 512-784-0505. Lifelong Austinite. She can help you and your real estate needs in and around the Austin area. Thank you, Laura, for your ongoing sponsorship. All right, Coach, tell me what you're thinking if you're Steve Sarkisian and you have this offensive line, this running back, this quarterback, and you have a defense in Arizona State that doesn't rush the passer well. Only 20 sacks. It's almost like Sark has anything he wants at his disposal Obviously, Arizona State's going to try to take something away. So how does Sark approach this game, in your opinion?
What do you take away? I mean, that's exactly right. But you look at this Texas offense, and when we're hitting on all 8 cylinders, I don't know what you take away. I mean, obviously, I think Sark is who he is, and we both know he'd rather throw it than run it, but he knows he has to be able to run it. But so they stack up, take away the run. They don't have a defensive lineman over 300 pounds. I mean, it's going to be how well will they hold up against this Texas offensive line? So I really think he'll have everything at his disposal. I really do. I think he'll have his entire game plan wide open. I think he can. I think he'll mix it up well and run it and pass it with success. I might be wrong, but I think we match up pretty well with their defense. They're not a great pass coverage defense, as we know. So, I think he'll have everything at his disposal. But again, Arizona State is not going to be a team that's going to just they're going to have some new looks. They're going to have some disguises. They're going to have some things they do to try to slow down and confuse our offense. But I think our offense is just looking at it on paper, we match up pretty well, I think.
I think that Texas matches up well too. It's almost like it matches up too well. Like you have this is the problem I have. I think Sark's going to have too many options. And instead of deciding on one and living and dying with the run or living and dying with the pass, he's going to have to choose which one to try to go off of. And that therefore is going to push Arizona State into, hey, look, let's stop the run on this down in the pass. It's going to put into some situations, I think, that are going to be interesting to follow. But look, if Sark really tries to just establish the run, and Trey Wisner can get going in the run game, I think Texas they need to be able to do that and be able to really get off to a good start. I think that's key, and then they can control the game with how they want to control it. That's one thing that I found Steve Sarkisian does really, really well. When he's out to a lead, he's very comfortable calling plays and keeping that lead. Now, we all know 4 years ago that wasn't the case, right? But now that he's got a third-year starter at quarterback, even with the issues in the third quarter this year, Texas has held all those leads and they've made drives in the third quarter. They may not have had points, but even against Clemson last week, they only ended up with 3, but they got a first and goal at the 3-yard line. I think that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. All right, let me ask you this. Special teams. You have, and Coach Irwin this year, have rightfully been concerned about Texas special teams, whether it's Burt Auburn missing a couple kicks against Georgia and other times throughout the year, or lack of yardage on kicks, or maybe it's even Silas Bolding trying to do too much at times. Where do you come out on this game in special teams? Because Arizona State is not a great special teams itself. Yeah. They're not any better than Texas, really.
Yeah, and I will also add to that, Bobby, into the special teams equation is Sark going to take points or is he going to roll the dice?
Interesting.
Yeah. Coach Irwin and I, we want points. We take points, momentum. And I kind of feel like that being a 2-touchdown plus favorite, does that affect your play calling? Do you roll the dice? Because, but then you don't make it and, you give momentum to Arizona State and their whole thing is going to be to keep the ball away from our offense. They're going to be very Vanderbilt-like and to me in their philosophy as they take on Texas. They don't want us to have the ball. They're going to keep it. They're going to run it. They're going to, like you said, they're going to get those short screens. They're going to, try to make Texas cover the entire field, but give the ball to the running back when they have to have, the yardage. But going back to the special teams, I feel like that Texas is due. We are due. I mean, have we blocked a kick yet this year or a punt?
I think one or two.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
One, but not a field goal, but a punt.
Yeah. but returns and blocks, we're due, and I think as you get further into these playoffs, obviously it's no secret you have to be hitting on all phases of your game. Special teams is huge. The deeper you get, the better the teams are. And honestly, like you said, that hasn't been a banner year for us special teams wise, but we still can salvage that and special teams can still help us win this game and hopefully help us win a national championship or a semifinal game or whatever. But we're not going to be able to reach the goals that we're all dreaming of this season without our special teams showing up and playing, because as you know, it comes to these games. You've been doing this a long, long time, Bobby. It comes to these type of games. Special teams can certainly win and lose you a game in the drop of a hat.
Fumble on special teams, because it's all when you fumble on special teams, it's in the red zone almost 90% of the time, right? Drop a punt at the 10. All of a sudden, somebody grabs it. I mean, that's a 7-point swing right there, if not more, because you have the ball back. But I agree. I'm a little worried about turnovers generally in this game, but we'll see. I also think that Texas is playing a good brand of ball. Clemson was not a bad football team that Texas dispensed with a week and a half ago. They were a good football team with a good quarterback, good pieces of the puzzle, really good receivers, I thought, and a good quarter. Coach, let me ask you this. Kind of call your shot here about how you see this game going. I mean, what are you thinking that this game is going to, how it's going to play out in your mind, at least? I know that it can be 85 different permutations of it, but how do you really see it going tomorrow?
Well, I am suspecting that maybe there'll be a slow start. I'm just saying that because I feel like they're going to show us some things defensively we haven't seen, and they're going to show us some things offensively we haven't seen. Dillingham, this is their Super Bowl. I mean, anything beyond this game is gravy to them. Who would have ever predicted them to be in this situation after winning 2-3 games last year? Yep. So they're going to have both barrels loaded, and they're going to unload. The chamber's going to be empty at the end of that game. So I think I'm wondering maybe if it's not going to take a little while for both teams to kind of figure out what the other team has planned for this game and kind of see how things unfold. And the team that makes the best adjustments is certainly going to be able to have a chance to get the momentum in this game. But I think as the game goes on, I think Texas will pull away from them. I would certainly hope to see that. Once all the jousting is kind of the dust is settled a little bit, you get into the flow of the game. I see Texas hitting their stride in the second quarter.
You think that's because, as much as anything, because of the guys up front on offensive and defensive line?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I just think there's just going to come a time where, this is what we're going to do. And, I don't think you can stop it. Like I said, once all the show's over with, and they get all their trick plays and whatever it is they're going to throw at us, and I think we're going to see some trick plays. I really do. I would like to see us have a little flea flicker or trick play. CJ's predicting a flea flicker as fast as the Arizona State safeties come up on run support. So CJ he's called this before now. I can't remember what game it was earlier this year. He called a reverse or something. Do you remember that?
I do remember it. Look, there's no telling what Texas is going to call. And Sark's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve, but he hasn't needed them.
Right.
And I think that's, we talked about this. I go back to, you mentioned a slow start. And I can definitely see that happening where Arizona State goes up 7-0, even 10-0 or 7-3 or something like that. But one of the things I left the Clemson game with was I felt like the Texas offense was starting to exert itself against a pretty good football team. They did the same thing against A&M. Pretty good. Not a great football team in Aggie land. Not a great football team at Clemson this year, but pretty good. And I felt like the Texas offense started to exert itself over them. And look, the defense is the defense. You said that. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be 30-14 or, 27-13 or, I just don't know. I do think Kenny Dillingham is a good young offensive coach that, to your point, is going to have Texas on its heels a little bit at times, with trying to call things that kind of pulling rabbits out of a hat. But there's a time when there are no more rabbits.
That's right. That's it.
And we'll see what happens with that. But I think that ultimately, if Texas plays this game where the offensive and defensive line have to prove who's better, I think that Texas has a very big advantage over the
no doubt.
Rebels.
The deception and the tricks and all that. I mean, and plus anything he's doing new is something that they haven't obviously working on a whole lot, probably. So I'm with you. When the dust settles and it comes down to the nut cutting, as they say, man to man, I think we exert ourselves and, we flex a little bit and, just live up to our billing. Now, I don't know that. I mean, we haven't really played a complete game yet in so long. I can't even remember when. What was it, Michigan? I don't even remember when the last.
Maybe a little bit of Florida, but the fourth quarter against Florida was kind of meh,
Yeah.
But to your point, that was
time
all
where we
third and fourth
time where we need to put it all together.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, Coach, that's going to do it. I want to say thank you again to our sponsor, Laura Baker, realtor at Keller Williams. She is an Austin real estate expert. You don't need to call anybody else if you're moving to, from, or within the Austin area. 512-784-0505. That's 512-784-0505. Or reach out to her at Laura at Andy Allen Team. All right, Coach, 24 hours away. Let's see what the Longhorns have to say tomorrow in Atlanta in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. For Bob Shipley, I'm Bobby Burton. Our thoughts with Brian Irwin this afternoon as well. You guys have a good one. Hook 'em.